All right, we have a package here coming from Las Vegas, Nevada, and this one is the Minimax tuner. Customer sent 3 Ziploc bags. I see a motherboard here, I see a motherboard here, and I see a screen here. So let's see what's going on. Description: where the LCD screen connects on the Minimax tuner, the connector broke off the board when trying to remove the screen, sending another board that hopefully you can remove the connector from and place on my board. So customer sent a donor board so that we can remove the connector from the donor board and put it on the board that he damaged the LCD connector on. We did a lot of the Minimax tuners on our channel where we change HDMI ports, or we fix no power issue, or we fix black screen issues. Now it's a whole different issue. Look at this. Customer only sent the board, and I can tell that the LCD connector is broken off the board. Let's take a look under the microscope. The connector is totally broken off the board. Good thing is we do not have any broken traces, and we can see that the connector solders on from the 2 legs on the sides, 1, 2, and the pins that are in the center here. Let's take a look at the donor board. Nothing is guaranteed when removing that connector from the donor board, because the connector is made out of plastic, and to remove the connector we have to apply heat. We do not know how fragile that connector is. That's the connector that we need to remove from this board and put it on the other board. The connector is plastic. The latch here is plastic. If we apply hot air, we do not know how much heat this connector can take. Some connectors can take more heat than others, but since we only have 1 try, we cannot risk using hot air and possibly damaging that connector. Right now, is it possible that we can buy the same connector somewhere online? Of course it's possible, but we need to know what that connector is. We do not have a part number for the connector, and there are a lot of similar connectors online. Let's say this connector is 100 pins. I may go online, search, and find a 100 pin connector, but maybe the distance between the pins are different. Maybe the connector looks the same, but when you get it, it's smaller or bigger. We need to have a model number in order to buy the same exact connector. Model number we do not have. So right now what I'm thinking is we have a couple of options. We can preheat the board, let's say 250 degrees Celsius, and then we can use hot air on the top, maybe at 300 degrees to remove that connector. That may work. Or we can use low melt solder on the pins here, and low melt solder seems to be the best option right now, because I can easily apply low melt solder on the pins here. And we also need to apply low melt solder on this pin here and that pin here. Those pins are hidden and it's a little bit difficult to see them. We need to remove that glue here so we can see the pins. So these are the 2 options: either low melt solder, or we can preheat the board and use hot air. The first thing I want to do is get rid of the glue on the sides, and we'll use low melt solder on the front pins here, and we'll try to apply low melt solder on the 2 pins that are on the side. I think that would be the best option right now. The first thing should have been to remove the glue and not apply flux, but it's okay. I'm gonna put the hot air station at 200 degrees. That should be enough to remove the glue from the sides. And I'm gonna be using this tool. This is the Mechanic IMAX. You can find it on our site. One end looks like this, and the other end is for scraping off underfill. And the item does come with about 19 different type of soft blades for BGA chip removal, so on and so forth. So let's start by just removing this glue here. Okay, glue is out. We should be able to apply low melt solder on the sides. Let's use low melt solder. Let's use a bigger tip. The job will be done faster. So all the pins are bridging now, but that's okay. We can wick the excess solder off. This is a non-destructive method. We are not damaging the pins. Okay, all we have to do is apply low melt solder onto the sides, but we need to change the tip to something smaller, and we have to be careful not to burn the plastic. So like I said, that's one way of doing it. The other way would have been to preheat the board and use hot air. Maybe next time we'll try the other method. But low melt solder is perfectly fine as long as you do not burn the plastic on that connector. I mean, even if you did burn some of that plastic, it's okay as long as the connector is functional. And let's do that side. We need to add flux. Let's use hot air at maybe 350 degrees. I'm gonna go back and forth. And look at that, the connector is already moving. And the connector is up. We did it. The connector is perfect. We did it. And the only reason we took the low melt solder way is because we do not know how fragile that connector is and we do not want to ruin it. Now we're going to quickly try to wick off solder from the pins. Just clean the connector. And I'm going to use the bigger tip. If we had used hot air, then cleaning the connector would not have been an issue because all the pins would be clean. But we cannot risk it. We only have one try and we want to get it right. I just have some weight over the connector so it doesn't move. Let's clean up. Okay, great. Great. Connector is perfect and ready to be soldered on to the other board. But before we solder it to the other board, we need to prep the other board. Let's do that right now. And somebody's gonna ask in the comments, what flux are you using? What's that gooey stuff that you are using? It's called Flux. Amtech 559. You can find it on our website. Log in to NorthridgeFix.com and search Flux or search 559. Same thing with low melt solder. You can find it there. Right now I'm not even touching the soldering iron on the board, and that pad is very weak. I'm barely touching the soldering iron on the board, barely. Let's add more flux and keep going. And we'll figure out the loose pad at the end. We do not know if that pad is a no connect or if it connects to something, but we'll figure it out. We should be good. We should be good. Okay, so now I want to wick off solder from the pads, and the reason I applied leaded solder is so we can lower the melting temperature so that the wicking process is a lot easier. I mean, all this work would have been avoided if we had a new connector in stock, but we do not. We're gonna do one pass on those pads because they appear to be weak. Just one pass. I'm barely touching the pads. Pads on a Samsung board, pads on a MacBook board are tough. But this board here, we do not trust pads on this board. So we have to be as gentle as possible. Okay, that's it. We just missed one pin, which is this one here. And now let's solder that connector in place. We have enough solder on the tip to cover all those pins, and this is a long connector. Some of the beginners are probably freaking out because of that bridge. It's okay. Take a deep breath and everything's gonna be okay. Do not cheap out on Flux because Flux will make the job perfect. Okay, it's time that we change the tip. Okay, let's go over the pins. Make sure everything is okay. Pin number 1 is solid. 2, 3, solid. I'm not gonna keep saying solid for every pin, but if a pin is loose, I will stop. Now, can we solder the 2 pins on the sides? We can. We do not have to, because once the screen goes in, that's it. I mean, the connector was secured with the glue on both sides here, so we can do the same. We can secure it with a little bit of glue from here and a little bit from here, and that should be good. Or we do not even have to add anything. We'll just connect the screen and test. Okay, so I added a little bit of glue here, and we're gonna add just a little bit here. Okay, and I'm using B7000 glue. The nice thing about B7000 glue is it's not permanent. We can always remove it in the future. It's going to take a few minutes before the glue hardens. We're going to put the customer's donor board back in the bag here. And we have the LCD screen right here. I'm going to install the screen right after the glue hardens up. So let's leave it on the side for a couple of minutes and I'll be back. And the screen, look at this. The screen is already apart in 2 pieces. That's probably the backlight layer and the LCD layer. Hopefully the screen is working. And the screen will fit in like this. So let me just connect it and we'll test it together. I close the latch on the screen. We're going to connect the USB port to the computer just to see if the screen will turn on. If yes, the job is done. Yeah, right there. It's working. Job is done. That's it. We're gonna invoice the customer and mail it back to him. Customer is gonna be happy. It's an expensive device. The Minimax tuner is an expensive device. You're talking probably $800 to $1,000 for that device. So I'm gonna keep it like this, plugged in, and customer will have to put this inside the shell because he did not send us the shell. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and we'll do something else in the next video.